All right, so why don't we go ahead and begin? Happy Thursday, everybody. I'm so excited to be here for this special session of Yoga Basics. In this workshop today, what we'll do is we'll break down some components of a normal yoga class, things like alignment and like why we do things a certain way, to hopefully make things feel a bit more accessible for you. And you can also learn a bit more about yourself in each pose or sequence. Now, what we're going to be breaking down today is the sun salutation. The sun salutation is a quintessential part of so many yoga classes. And I think part of the reason why yoga became popular because it turned what used to be static postures into something that is a bit more dynamic, makes it more of that workout feel that we love to get. And I personally love them as well. And so, an interesting thing about sun salutations is that they are not a part of classical yoga. I've studied yoga for 15 years now, and there's nothing in these ancient scriptures that talk about flowing poses together and linking them with the breath. That was developed in the early 20th century, around the time that yoga came from India more into Western countries. So, with that said, it's still an important part of yoga practice today because there is this wonderful, wonderful thing that can happen when we blend our movement with our breath. And most of it, it's actually to help regulate our energy. If you move slowly through a sun salutation, you're moving intentionally. You can bring some calmness to your nervous system. It helps to regulate your mind. When we move quickly through them, it has that aerobic quality that we all like to it. It helps to excite the nervous system. So if you are experiencing lethargy or depression, we want to get you moving a little bit. So there are so many great reasons why we practice sun salutations and we blend them. We move through postures with the breath. Now, there are many types of sun salutations. That's another thing to note. Um, there are actually classical sun salutations, ones that have been developed and practiced through many yoga systems throughout the years. And then there's also the ones that we just make up us teachers as we go along. And those of you who have been to my normal yoga classes, you probably experienced dozens and dozens of different sun salutations. And the one we'll do today is actually one of the classic sequences. And it's the one that works with warrior one pose. Okay. And so we're going to break this all down. And I think I'm going to start just by showing you the complete flow. Then we'll deconstruct it and then we'll put it back together, all of us together. Sound good? Okay. So I'm going to move my stuff off to the side and just show you kind of rather slowly. I might talk through it a little bit, this sequence that we'll be building up to today. So like many sun salutations, we start standing. And normally we're moving with the breath, but with me talking, I'm going to not be so moving with the breath. Good. And then I'm going to lift my arms up with an inhale, and then I'm just going to fold forward, exhale. Sometimes we do a chair pose situation here, but today we're just not going to worry about that. Then we come up halfway, chest parallel to the ground, and then fold down. And I'll step a leg back. Today for warrior one, the back foot's flat on the floor, toes pointing forward, and I bend the front knee. Then I'll reach the arms forward, coming into warrior. And sometimes we stay for a breath or two, but after those few breaths, I'll straighten the front knee, and then I'll hinge at the hips, keeping the back straight as I fold down over the leg. I usually stay here for a breath or two, and when I'm done, I step back to downward facing dog, our favorite posture. And then today, our middle flow, the center of our flow, will be coming down onto hands and knees, and then doing a chest press to come down onto your abdomen. From here, we'll come into cobra pose, lifting the head and chest, noting that the elbows stay bent here. And then exhale, we'll come down, curling the toes under. I'll push back up to hands and knees and coming back into downward facing dog. Now, the same leg that we stepped back before, which in this case is my left leg, is the same one that we're going to step forward. So we'll bring the knee in toward the chest and step the foot forward. And I'll break that down a bit more when we get there. The back foot comes flat to the floor again, bending the front knee. Again, we'll come into warrior one, this time on the other side. And then I'll straighten the knee and fold forward. Staying for a breath or so sometimes. After that, I'll step the back foot forward, coming back into the standing forward fold. Palms to shins halfway up again, extending the spine forward and down, and then coming all the way back up and palms to heart. Okay, so that's the flow that we're going to build towards. We're going to deconstruct all of these pieces and not in order. Because one thing I want to make sure that happens, in addition to teaching you about this flow, is that we actually warm up. So that middle flow we did, the hands and knees, chest down, cobra, and back up again. We're going to practice that one first. So please, from where you're at right now, come on to hands and knees, table pose. Bring the hands underneath your shoulders, knees beneath the hips, or slightly further back. Because we got to warm up, we can't just go into this cold. Good. So let's take a deep breath in. Look forward with your chest. Feel the tailbone lift, and then just once or twice, we're going to come into cat pose. So tuck the chin and tail under, rounding the back. Then inhale, look forward. This isn't a part of our flow, but again, we don't want to start off cold. Rounding the back, exhale. Inhale, looking forward. Exhale, rounding the back. Good. Now we'll move into our regular flow. So, and hands and knees, take a deep breath in. With your exhale, bend your elbows and toward your chest. And you want to bring the center of the chest right between the thumbs and then release the hips back. And when you do that, the hands come under the shoulders and you're perfectly prepped for cobra pose. Okay? Now in cobra, the elbows stay bent. You're going to roll the shoulders down the back, lift the heart and head. Good. Now it's tempting here to push the floor forward and straighten the arms. I'm going to ask you not to do that. I see that a lot in some classes, and that's not how you do cobra. Go ahead and come down for a moment. We're going to come back into it, don't worry. And then with your next inhale, go ahead and lift the head and chest again. And instead of thinking about pushing the floor forward, think about dragging it back toward your body. This engages the triceps. It cuts the shoulder blades together a little bit more. And it's actually a little easier to look forward with the chest. Now, the arms are working pretty hard here. It's not a passive pose at all. Good. Then exhale, release on down. Why not? Third time's a charm. Let's come back into cobra just for a breath. Inhale, lifting the head and chest. And exhale, release down. Good. All right, so from here, curl the toes under, and you're pushing the floor forward to push back up to hands and knees. Okay? And then with the toes curled under, lift the hips into the air, coming into downward facing dog. Now we're going to break down down dog here in a moment, but for now, let's go through that flow a couple more times. Inhale, float down onto hands and knees. With your exhale, bend the elbows and toward your chest or toward your sides, bring the chest down to the ground and release the hips. Hands are underneath the shoulders. Keeping the elbows bent to lift the head and chest, cobra pose. Exhale, release down. Curl the toes under. Again, push up and back into downward dog. We're going to do that one more time for now. Floating down onto hands and knees. Chest press. Release the hips. And then lift the head and chest, cobra. Nice little back bend here. Exhale, release down. Curl the toes under. Push up and back into downward facing dog. Good. Staying in down dog. So in downward facing dog, this pose is actually a spinal extension. So it's not so much about straightening the legs as it is about straightening the spine. So often what I have folks do here is actually bend your knees a bit more than you think you need to, and then lift your hips a bit higher. Good. Now, if you'd like, if you're feeling like you need a little bit more support in this posture, you can take your feet as wide apart as your yoga mat. And that just gives you a bit more access to the hamstrings, that's the backs of the legs, and the back body, the spine itself. Again, it's okay to keep the knees bending here. Good. One more breath in down dog. And then just to give you a break, float down onto hands and knees, and let's come into child's pose. So we are doing a couple of postures that are not a part of the flow, just to make sure we're not frying you out immediately. And then inhale back up to hands and knees. Curl the toes under. If you want the feet wider apart in down dog, you can. And then lift the hips into the air again. Again, come back into that same alignment. The spine is long or extending. Now, I know some of you love to walk the dog out. So if you want to do that, you can here, bending one knee and then extending the opposite heel down to the ground. Good. One more breath. And then we'll go through that middle flow one more time, floating down onto hands and knees. Take a deep breath in. Exhale to a chest press. Release the hips. Cobra inhale, lifting the head and chest. Exhale, release down. And then go ahead and push up to hands and knees and back to downward facing dog. Good. Floating down onto hands and knees, look toward me, and I'll demonstrate the next part that I'd like us to work through. So a question that I get quite often, especially as we're practicing at home, is how do we step the foot forward when we're coming into a lunge or into a warrior posture? Sometimes the foot doesn't make it. And the answer to that is practice, practice, and a bit more practice. You have to strengthen the lower back, you have to strengthen the core, you have to strengthen the leg. But I'm going to give you some tips now about how to get that foot from behind you in down dog all the way between your hands, noting that it might take a bit more time of practice than just today to get it forward. But I'll give you some tips and tricks. And so often, if you're in my class, I ask you to lift the leg into the air and then with an exhale, swing or carry step forward. Okay, and carry just means help drag the foot forward. Now, sometimes when we do that, the foot only makes it about this far or this far, and you can reach down and grab hold of the ankle and help it forward. Now, another option, and I'm just giving you some options here, is to not do the swing step at all. If you know you can't do that, what you can do instead is float down onto hands and knees, then step the foot forward. And then if we're coming into a warrior pose, you can just pick up the back knee and make the adjustment as you need to. But wait, there's more. If you need support, what you can do, and I really recommend this for us home practitioners, is to buy some yoga blocks. They're not that expensive. You can get them at Target or on Amazon or plenty of other places. The 4-inch block is the ones that I typically use. And you can bring the blocks underneath your hands. And this just gives you a bit more clearance to get the foot forward. So you can practice as such. And then if you don't need the blocks at that point, you can move them and come into whatever pose you're doing. Now, if you really want to work on this a bit more, what you can do is just, again, practice, practice, practice. The mechanics of it are to bring the knee in toward your chest, come forward into a plank, and step the foot forward. Okay, that takes a lot of control, and that's what we can build towards. But you can decide how you want to do it. Okay, I know that was a lot, but let's give it a couple of tries. Okay. So coming into downward facing dog, if you have yoga blocks at home and you want to use them, feel free to bring them under your hands now. Good. And then we'll lift a leg into the air. Doesn't matter which one, we'll do both. And with your exhale, try to bring the foot all the way between the hands. Again, if it doesn't make it, you can reach down and grab the ankle and step it forward. Good. You can rest in a lunge for a moment and then step the foot back and then do the other side. And again, maybe you're not lifting and swinging. Maybe you're coming down onto hands and knees and stepping the foot forward. Finding what works for you. This is an exploration of what works for your practice. We'll just do that one more time on each side. Trust me, you'll get more practice. If you are trying to strengthen, meaning do this without having to help the foot forward. Again, you bring the knee in toward your chest. You come forward into a plank, and you try to clear as far forward as you can. Good. When you feel done with that second side, coming back to downward facing dog. I don't know about you, but doing that little bit of work, I'm starting to feel a little warm. Good. And then walk your hands back to meet your feet, coming into the standing forward fold. Good. So the standing forward fold, we won't spend much time here, but it's good to note not to lock the knees. There's a slight bend to them, so you can allow the upper body just to drape over the legs. Good. Now go ahead and bend your knees a little bit more and roll yourself all the way up to standing. All right, so I'm having you stand so that you can see what I'm going to do next, because there's another posture that I see done wrong pretty consistently, and it's no fault of yours. It's just if you don't have somebody in the room saying like, hey, that's not how you do it, then you might just continue to practice it incorrectly. So this might take some awareness on your part to know how your body looks. So sometimes practicing in front of a mirror can be helpful, but I'll try to give you enough cues in your body to see how it goes. And so this is, sometimes it's called monkey pose. Sometimes I just call it halfway up. And so from a forward fold, I press my palms to my shins. I lift my chest parallel to the floor and I look down. This is the posture. I can see myself in the camera, so I know it's true. So I'm taking my shoulders down my back. The spine is extending forward. I'm reaching the crown of the head into the space in front of me. Now, some ways that I see this done wrong sometimes, and this is going to be helpful for you to know if you're doing that or not, is I say halfway up, and you just put the hands on the knees or the shins, and you just do this. The back, or actually the back is rounding pretty strong. The knees are locked, and you're rounding forward, and you're trying to do this, and it's not really get anywhere. That's not stretching anything. All right. Another way that I see it done wrong is even if you extend the spine correctly, a lot of people jut the chin and look forward, cutting off energy at the neck. There's nothing going on up here. You do not need to be aware of it. Instead, look straight down at the floor, okay? And even when I come into the extension, reaching the spine forward, my knees are not locked. There's still a little bit of give to them, okay? So let's give that a try together, and I'll walk you through it all again. So coming into the forward fold, just hinge at the hips, fold down, let the knees be a little bit softer, bent. And with your inhale, press your palms to your shins, straighten your arms, take the shoulders down the back, bring the chest parallel to the floor, looking down at the ground. You might even feel like the back of the neck is lengthening. And then exhale, fold down. Let's do that again. Inhale, come halfway up, palms to shins, shoulders down the back, looking straight down, don't jut the chin forward, and the back is flattening out. Good, and fold down. We're gonna do it one more time, and we're gonna hold the pose for just a little bit longer, okay? Palms to shins, halfway up, staring down at the ground, shoulders down the back. Good. Now, even though the palms are on the shins, let that be a loose connection. It's just kind of a touch point, you're not pressing into them. The knees are slightly bent. And you should feel like you're working pretty hard here. It looks easy, it's not. The lower back is working strong. It takes a lot of work to keep the shoulder blades working toward one another and down the back. It takes some work not just to drop the head. And you also might feel the backs of the legs lengthening. Take one more breath here. And exhale, fold down. And then this next part, I often say sweep the arms out to the side and come all the way up. That's actually coming through that last posture. So take the arms out to the sides, flatten the back out, come halfway up, stay for a breath. And then with your next inhale, finish the rise. Lift all the way up, reaching the arms up, okay? So again, if you can look at me to do this once if you'd like to. As I sweep the arms out to the side, I'm actually passing through monkey pose, like the same position of the spine. and coming up. I just make it one fluid movement, okay? Let's do that one more time together. Folding forward. And with your inhale, sweep the arms out to the side, come through that halfway posture, and then come all the way up, reach. And bring the arms on down. Good. So there's just a couple more postures to put together, and then we're going to flow this all together. That's why we've been spending 30 minutes breaking down this sequence for you. All right. So Warrior One is the central aspect of this practice. And again, a posture that sometimes I can see be done incorrectly, especially if you're not so aware of what's going on. So watch me do the posture a couple of times. So from the front of my mat, I'm going to step my right foot back. And here is the first part. There are many types of warrior postures, and it can get confusing as to which one is which. So with Warrior One, you're stepping your foot back. Well, I'm 5'6", so I'm a short guy. This is about a 3-foot wide stance, if not a little bit longer. The back foot is flat on the floor and the toes are pointing forward about 45 degrees, which is different than Warrior Two. Warrior Two, if you were in class last night, Warrior Two, the foot is back even further and the toes are pointing straight out. They're not pointing forward at all, okay? So Warrior One, you have the back foot flat on the floor, pointing forward about 45 degrees. And that allows you to take this side hip, in this case, my right hip, and round it forward to look directly forward, okay? Now, this is important here. You want the two ilium, the two hip bones, to be pointing directly forward. An analogy I love is that these are like headlights on your car. And if they're out to the side, you're going to hit a deer. So keep them pointing directly forward, all right? So that's the base. Feet are spread apart. There's this inner rotation of the hip. And if you can't get that inner rotation, you can take the back foot out to the side even more if you need to. Now, the next component of this, the hips are squared, the feet are where they're at. You're going to bend the front knee. Now, this is not a huge bend to the knee. With Warrior Two, you go all the way down. For this one, you bring it kind of to this point where there's somewhat of an upper angle of the femur. Hands can be on the hips here if you'd want to. Often we do this with arms straight up. If that doesn't work for your shoulders, you could do cactus arms, taking the arms straight out to the side. This is what it looks like here. Cactus arms. The idea here for the upper body is to create a back bend. And when we say back bend in yoga, we don't mean throwing out your lower back. What we mean is creating a reversal of the thoracic curve. So the upper spine is coming into its reverse flexion. So normally the upper back rounds, we're trying to open it up. And a lot of our habitual patterns in our culture is very rounding and forward. We're driving, we're texting, we're typing, we're doing everything this way. And so we really need to work to open up the chest. For many of us, there's not a lot of flexibility there. So this posture helps us to achieve that. So just to show you what it looks like again, I'm bending in. In this case, I'll reach my arms up and turn the heart toward the ceiling. So I'd like you to do this with me. So go ahead and step to the top of your mat and step your left foot back foot flat on the floor. Good. And you might need to change the width of your feet as you practice, just getting to know your body. So the back foot is flat on the floor, toes pointing forward. Take this hip and rotate it, again, to look directly forward. If it's not able to do that, take the back leg out to the side a bit more to get that rotation in the hip. Now it's tempting for the pinky edge of the back foot to lift up off the ground. Think about grounding that foot down as you bend the front knee and sink into the pose. There's so many intricacies here, right? Good. Then I'd like you to bring your hands into a position that suits you. So hands can be on the hips. And if that's the case, there's still this reversal of the upper spine. You can do arms straight up, taking the thumbs back behind you. You could also do cactus arms. And stay for a few breaths. Good. And then go ahead and straighten the front leg and bring the arms on down. Now I want to make sure we do the other side before we come into our flow. So go ahead and step the left foot forward and step the right foot back. Find your stance again, building from the ground up. The feet are about 3 to 4 feet apart. Back foot is flat on the floor, toes pointing forward. There's this inner rotation to the right hip. Again, you can adjust the feet to make sure that happens. Ground the back foot, especially the pinky edge of that foot, and then sink into this left knee. I didn't mention this on the first side, but the knee is guiding out toward its second toe. Good, and then bring your hands into a position that suits you, either on the hips, cactus, or maybe straight up and back. Staying for about 3 to 4 breaths. Good, and then straighten the front leg and bring the arms down and step forward. Beautiful, I'm having fun, this is fun. I like breaking down these things. All right, so the final pose that we need to explore before we come into our flow is mountain pose. It's standing. It's just standing, but there's more activation to it than you probably thought before. So normally in class, because we're moving and we got stuff to do, I just say bring your feet underneath your hips and stand tall. But what does that mean? So building from the ground up, yes, have your feet about hip width apart. Good. And then you want to feel some activation through the legs. The legs are not locked, the knees are soft. There's a lift from the pelvis. There's a slight pulling the navel toward the spine and drawing the tailbone downward. The heart is lifting. The shoulders glide down the back. And there's a slight extension through the neck as well. It's tempting to just kind of throw the neck back or even drop the chin, but you want to feel like there's a string at the top of your head that's lifting you up a little bit taller. And if you actually kind of do that, you're actually going to feel the length growing there. So find that. Feet on the ground, hip width apart. There's this lift in the pelvis, activation at the core. The tailbone draws down toward the heels, shoulders gliding down the back, and the crown of the head lifting. Don't you feel awake when you do that? You kind of feel powerful. You kind of feel like ready for whatever's coming at you. It's a great mentality to embody when you are either ending or starting a sun salutation. Okay? So we'll come in and out of that one a few times. There's one posture that I've not taught succinctly, but we'll experience it as we flow. And just to show you it, it's when we come out of warrior and we fold forward over the leg. And the only thing I'll note here is that as you fold forward, you can bend the front knee a little bit. And you can also have blocks under your hands to take some pressure off. So if you need blocks, have them next to your mat. And this goes for any class, anything you're doing with me or anybody else. Just have them at the head of your mat, just right off the sides, so that you can bring them to you as you need to. Okay? So we have a few minutes left. So let's put this all together. We've deconstructed this entire flow, and now we're going to do it together. And we'll probably go through 3 or 4 rounds. Okay? So you would know everything. I'm just going to take some glue to it. So standing tall at the top of your mat, feet underneath your hips. Feel this activation, the pelvis drawing up, the navel pulling back, the tailbone drawing down, shoulders down the back, and the crown of the head lifting. There's so much to think about here. Then we're going to try to blend this together on the breath. So with your next inhale, sweep the arms up and overhead, reach. And then exhale, hinge at your hips, folding forward and down. Now here's monkey pose. Press palms to shins, come halfway up, looking at the ground, flatten out the back. And then exhale, fold back down. Let's step the right foot back foot flat on the floor, toes pointing forward, prepping for your warrior one. Now, even in the forward fold, you can make sure the hips are squaring forward. You can bend the front knee. And when you're ready, reach the arms forward and come into your version of the pose, whether that's arms straight up, out to the side, or hands on the hips. Either way, there's this reversal of the thoracic curve. The heart is opening. Good. With your next inhale, straighten the arms up, straighten the front knee. Think about hinging at the hips as you reach forward and fold down over that left leg. Stay for a breath. And when you're ready, bend the front knee and step back to downward facing dog, and we'll do our wonderful middle flow. When you're ready, float gently down onto hands and knees, and then do a chest press. Bend the elbows, bring the chest down to the ground, and release the hips. And then rolling the shoulders down the back, lift the heart and head, cobra. And then exhale, release down, curl the toes under, push up and back to downward facing dog. Now we're going to do a step through with the right foot. So if you need blocks, bring them underneath your hands. Lift the right leg up and step the right foot on through. Okay? Once that foot is between the hands and you've helped it get there, take the back foot flat to the floor, toes pointing forward. Again, a warrior one stance. Bend the front knee. Reach the arms forward and bring yourself up into warrior one. Again, hands can be in whichever position feels supportive for you in this moment. Good. Inhale, straighten the knee. And exhale, go ahead and fold long over that leg. And when you're ready, step the back foot forward, coming into the standing forward fold. Pressing the palms to the shins, come halfway up. Feel the crown of the head extending forward, and then exhale, fold down. Now with a strong back, with a flat back, lift all the way up to standing or reach the arms overhead and palms to the heart. Good, let's do one more time, okay? When you're ready, sweep the arms down and up. Exhale, fold forward. Palms to shins. Exhale, release. Step the left foot back. Back foot flat on the floor, toes pointing forward. Bend the front knee. Warrior one. Good. Straighten the front knee and hinge at the hips and fold down over that leg. Stay for the inhale. Exhale, step back to downward facing dog. Floating down onto hands and knees, inhale. Exhale, bring the chest down to the floor. Release the hips. Coming into cobra, just the head and chest lift, inhale. Exhale, release down. Curl the toes under, push up, and back into your downward facing dog. This time we're going to step the left foot forward, so lifting it into the air if you're swinging, and bring the foot all the way through. When you're ready, back foot flat to the floor, bend the front knee, and then go ahead and come on up into your warrior on this side. Inhale, straighten the knee, and exhale, hinge at the hips, folding down. Stay for the inhale, and exhale, step the back foot forward, coming into the standing forward fold. Palms to shins, halfway up, inhale. Exhale down. Inhale, sweep the arms out to the sides, come all the way up, nice strong back, and palms together at the heart. Good. So we are at time now. I hope that you enjoyed that session. I hope that you learned something new about yoga, your body, or both. I'm always here if you have questions. You can always log on early, and I'm always happy to stay a couple minutes after to chat as well. It's my hope that you have a great rest of your day, and hope to see some of you tomorrow for chair yoga. Until then, take care. Namaste.